You guys will not believe how much work happened in just 1 week. It's crazy.
It was a bomb site.
I'm Mel.
I'm Sean.
And we are the Dyers Fam. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe below. If you've been watching, you'll know that we've been doing a big home renovation project and we've just recently become homeowners of our first house. So if you've been following our journey so far, you'll know that we've had just over a week of home renovations. And so we're really excited to give you guys an update on what's been going on.
So we went to see the property and first of all, there were so many people there. There was about 6 people, 6 builders, my dad, who wasn't supposed to be there in the first place, and 2 random people from eBay that came to pick up some sofas that Mel's been selling, and she's been selling everything on eBay.
Well, hang on a minute, guys. We're doing a really big project, right? It's super expensive. All the money that we can save, like, the better. And he just wants to, like, throw everything out to the dump. And, like, there are people in this world that can use this stuff.
Sure. So the first thing that we did when we got to the property was, well, first of all, I asked my dad what the hell he was doing there, because he wasn't supposed to be there. Second of all, our builder took us upstairs, and it was incredible because everything was stripped out. The carpets had gone, the walls had come down, and the loft had gone. The whole roof had gone. So we go upstairs, and our builder takes us up the ladder to see it. Well, I mean, I saw it. This one decided to go upstairs into the loft, to which our builder had to warn her not to put her foot in the wrong place so her foot won't go through the ceiling.
It was wicked though, honestly. Like, I've never kind of been that high on a roof, I guess, which with no roof basically. But it was really cool just to see the size of the space, and actually that was the first time we'd really got to see the size of the space that will eventually become, you know, our bedroom, our loft area. It was really cool, and it was a little bit dangerous, I'll be honest, because you had to like balance on the floor beams and you couldn't step in between the ceiling, otherwise like basically your foot would fall through the ceiling. And it was really, really dirty. So like basically the clothes I was wearing, I had to take everything off when I got home and just put it all in the wash because it was like filthy from standing up on the roof and, you know, all that stuff.
When she finally came down, our builder then had to tell us a couple of things that he found. So first of all, the first floor ceiling is actually made of plaster. And he said that if we were to put spotlights onto that ceiling, he would need to remove the plaster and for us to have effectively a new ceiling. That wasn't an expense that we wanted, nor was it a plan that we had originally. So it wasn't an issue for us. But the secondary issue that came up was that there was plaster in between the floorboards above the first floor ceiling, which would be the floor for our new master bedroom. And he said that we had 2 options. One, to clear out the plaster, which is an additional cost. And Mel turned around and said, oh yeah, that's fine. We can spend the money, we can clean it.
I didn't say we could spend the money. I said maybe we should clean it. Because, you know, it's like dirt in the house and it's going to stay in the house for how many years we live there. And
it would never affect us. To which my response was, well, is there a second option? He said yes, and he said the second option is that we can put board over the floorboards, and it will just be sealed within that gap. We would never see it, it would never cause an issue for us. It would only be an issue if we took out the floors again, which I do not intend to do. And
they also said that I think if we border it up, it will prevent cracks forming in future years. And actually this was something that we didn't know, you know, as kind of new homeowners. When you get structural work done at your house, it's natural for cracks to form within a few years, you know, in the walls and through the paint, basically. It's normal. So they were saying that, you know, if you do this bordering up, it will prevent some of those cracks happening, which is great.
It's also worth noting that even if you don't have any work done to your property, in the summer, the walls will expand, and in the winter, the walls will contract. So naturally, over time, the walls and the plaster, through the expansion of the contraction, the walls are likely to crack.
When we left it, basically, we just said, you know, can you give us a quote of the different options here, and we'll really make a decision. So after that, we head down to the ground floor, and actually I think that's the part of the house which ironically is going to be, you know, the more complicated area to renovate.
It was a bomb site.
You guys might remember that the house looked like this. Well, now it looks like this. The first thing that our builder talked to us about was the porch. So if you remember from our first video, which you can find here if you haven't watched it already, basically we want to get our porch door kind of removed and our main front door pushed forward to, replace the porch door. And that would give us, a little bit more space, which would allow us to hang up our coats, or when people come round, they can sit down and take their shoes off and just have that little bit more space at the entrance of the house. So what happened is he said, well, look, in your drawings, the engineer has said, put some steel beams in if you're going to do that kind of work. And then what the builder said was basically, there's no point in putting these steel beams in because they're going to still stick out from the wall. And that's basically the problem at the moment. At the moment, we have a kind of brickwork which goes around the porch of the house, and if we were to remove the brickwork and put the steel beams in, they would still stick out from the walls. So our builder was basically saying, what's the point in going through all of that effort? Why don't we just speak to the structural engineer, see if we can reduce the width of the bricks, and then avoid having to kind of knock the whole thing down and still have that space, basically. So we're going to see about that one and see if we can do that. I mean, it makes sense, plus, still really expensive as part of your materials. So if we can avoid that, that would be great.
The second issue that the builder told us about is after stripping out all the carpet from the entire house, but mainly the downstairs, we learned that pretty much the entirety of the downstairs floor is concrete. Now, bearing in mind that the house was built in 1908, the last time any work had actually been done on the house was an extension that my granddad organised. The floor that the extension was made with was concrete, and it matched the rest of the house at that time.
Who puts concrete in the floor? I mean, this is not Sri Lanka, guys. Like, what the heck? Anyway, so we found out there was concrete. We almost absolutely lost it because we're like, what the hell is concrete doing here? And oh my God, it's going to be super expensive to take it out. And we were just basically looking at Sean's dad like, how could you let this happen? But this all happened, maybe I think 30 years ago, something like that. And it was before building regulations had kind of come into force the way that they are now. So obviously now you could never put concrete into your floors in that same way. But, that's our issue. Oh, and the other issue is that we have a manhole, which is also in the house, which is completely illegal now, by the way, as well. So we have to now move that manhole outside. But obviously the manhole is tanked in with the concrete. Another nightmare. So we're going to have to figure this out and obviously take it out, right?
So the reason why we need to take the concrete out, because one argument is, well, why don't you just keep it in and just flatten everything and make sure everything's on one surface? We can't. We have to take it out if we are going to put underfloor heating in. If we're going to put underfloor heating in, the builder said that there needs to be a 30 centimetre gap between the floor in order to roll everything he needs to roll in. So the gel, the insulation, the wires and everything he needs to put in. So there needs to be that level. And if we don't take the concrete out, then we can't have the underfloor heating.
So the reason why people say it's not a good idea to lay underfloor heating on top of concrete is because the insulation is really, really poor. So basically all the heat will seep out through the concrete out of the house, and it won't, stay in the house. So you need to create that barrier, basically. So what were our two options then from that?
Well, it was take the concrete out, or you leave the concrete in. But if we leave the concrete in and just have everything on one surface, we'll have to put radiators. So actually, it's probably worth us taking the expense, taking the hit now, removing the concrete, putting the underfloor heating in, because fundamentally it will be more cost effective putting the underfloor heating in than if we left it and just put radiators. So the other thing that we noticed is that there's a lot of junk in the front of the house. Not surprising, walls are coming down, floorboards are coming out, they're going to have to dump all the rubbish somewhere. The reason why it's all at the front of the house is because we had to decide whether we wanted to have a skip or not. So we don't have a driveway, which meant that if we were to have a skip, we would have to ask the builders to apply for a license to the council and then to put the skip in on the road. Now, bearing in mind, it's a public road, so we would have to then apply to the council to suspend the parking bay in the road. And not only do we have to pay for the license, but we would then have to pay on a daily rate what the council was charging in order to suspend the bay.
Which was 60 quid a day to have the skip outside the house, plus like £150 application fee, and that would only last for like 2 weeks. So guys, we're gonna have the skip like outside our house for 6 months basically, because that's how long this job is. Like, we added up the cost of that by 6 months. It was like £20,000. And that's just to get the license for the skip. That's not to pay for the skip man. It was crazy. Who's spending that kind of money on suspending a parking bay?
Who's spending that type of money on a bin? So our alternative, which our builder suggested, was that they just dump everything on the front of the house. When it becomes too full, they just call a skip company to come, they dump it into the skip, and then they go off. And
they call that a pick up and run service, right? So, you know, it just, as and when you need it, it comes. And I think it's probably a little bit more expensive than having the skip, but obviously it's cheaper, a hell of a lot cheaper than having to pay the council to park your skip outside. Oh, and by the way, if you're a resident on that road and you have a visitor, you can buy these parking permit like visitor cards. Those cards cost £1 a day, right? These guys are trying to charge us £60 a day for a skip. What a joke. So guys, those were the 4 big things that happened for us this week. We hope you enjoyed this update. Tune in next week for another update, and also don't forget to subscribe and comment below on your thoughts. Bye.
Bye.